Hello, my name is Jorb. I love gear. Let's talk about Behringer. If you're watching this, you probably have some sort of an opinion of them as a company, their business practices, their release cycle. Whatever they do kind of turns into a little bit of news. Whether it's just a new clone, some weird promo video, uncool social media posts, whatever Behringer puts out, you're bound to see people talking about it. It becomes a little bit of a news cycle on Reddit, on YouTube, on Discord, all over. And you don't see me doing a ton of that, participating in that very much, certainly not on the channel, in part because I try and avoid being reactionary with the videos I decide to make. I don't love to do news content. I like things that are going to be found forever. They're resources that are out there for years. The point is I leave the news, which is most of the Behringer stuff. Look what they did this week. Look what they did today. Look what they announced. I leave most of that to my peers. But I've had enough people ask me why I don't cover the DeepMind anymore or make patches for it anymore, why I've never had any of the clones on the channel. And recently, Behringer has very specifically called out YouTubers and influencer marketing as a whole. So it's like, you know what? Finally, this feels like I have enough of a perspective to add to the noise. So this is going to be my, Jorb's only, loosely organized Behringer opinions, leaving them out there for people to reference forever and start some conversations and taking some perspective, all that. I've got a few sections written out totally, but I'm mostly just going to go for it and cut out anything incoherent. But first, I feel like I need to do this. We need some ground rules. I'm specifically avoiding any comment on the quality of their hardware. Those conversations I feel are not productive. Even if I specifically have had issues in every Behringer synth, just two, and every Behringer mixer, just two I've ever had. I know that probably is not a universal experience, and more so, most of my issues are with the way Behringer is operating or the way they're publicly positioning themselves, perhaps, and not with the quality of their goods. I'll leave that conversation or that level of judgment for other people. My opinion isn't just Behringer is good or Behringer is bad. I don't think yours should be either. And I'm saying this as a ground rule because I feel like I just should say it. I do not blindly defend anything a company I like does, and I do not blindly hate anything a company I dislike does, and I encourage you not to do either, okay? Also important, you're not a bad person if you have Behringer gear, and you aren't better than somebody who does if you refuse to buy it. That's just ridiculous, okay? This is the most important one. I have total respect for my colleagues, for other YouTubers, and they have their own motivations for covering whatever they're going to cover. I'm in no position to tell anybody what they're allowed to show, what they're not allowed to show. There's nothing wrong with talking about something people are wanting to learn about. There's nothing wrong with putting out coverage or certainly an unbiased look at something people want to learn about, right? Fair? You guys all agree? All that to say, I really encourage everybody to put a genuine effort into developing their own opinions, especially for things they feel strongly about. Don't just absorb everything I or anybody else says, okay? I want to talk in the comments. I'll be in there. I don't want to fight, okay? And never cite me as a reason to harass anybody, all that, okay? Got it? Cool. What you're about to watch legally is just my opinion. Anything I mentioned that has not been specifically proven in a court of law, you should regard as alleged. Cool? Cool. So at the risk of my legal well-being and the health of my comment sections forever, let's start with the clones. If you have only one Behringer opinion, chances are it'll be about their practice of cloning hardware. Often it's classic synthesizer circuits, but cloning other products, other instruments, making modern, more affordable versions of whatever it was. From a business perspective, that's a really obvious thing to be motivated by, right? Tons of us would love a Minimoog, right? What if something had the same control layout, sounded very, very close, and cost a lot less? It's really clear to see that that is likely to be a success. And that's why Behringer does it. It's been part of their business model long before synthesizers. They copied mixers in the 90s. They allegedly copied pedals in the 2000s. It's something they've been doing for a long time. Allegedly. But only now and only with synthesizers really have they publicly cast it as this like righteous goal. Like they're doing some deeply important public service, giving the masses a fair shot at making music. And it's really, really, really strange. The barrier for entry for making music has never been lower. Affordable hardware, yes, and Behringer is part of that. But so are plenty of other companies. But there's software for cheaper or there's software for free. And it's truly, again, never been easier or less expensive to start making music. So Behringer really is not the first and not the only path to making music affordably, even if you limit it to hardware. They aren't some electronic music Robin Hood even though that's really what it seems like they want us to feel. Yes, they're making cheap hardware, but they're not doing it for any righteous goal. They're doing it to make money. How are they allowed to clone these things? How is it allowed? As I understand it, and I'm really not an expert, and I did just have part of my understanding corrected or clarified on Discord, so shout out Noise Theorem, but you can't copyright just an analog circuit in most cases. You can patent certain sections of it or a certain component. I might have gotten that wrong. I'm very far from an intellectual property lawyer, okay? But my take is, just because something is legal doesn't mean it doesn't suck. Okay, right? Can we all agree to that? And not every Behringer clone is equally as shitty or equally as, I guess commendable, they might say. They're all different. They all fall in different parts of this argument, I think. So 3 examples. We have a direct clone of something vintage, generally inaccessible. Maybe it's modernized a little bit, but it doesn't have enough new to find its own identity. There's plenty of those. Second, we have an architectural clone of an older synth with extra features building upon that core. And to me and many others, let's say there's enough new elements to give it a character of its own. Okay? Or third, we have a direct clone of a piece of another company's modern in-production hardware, makes no significant changes to the original, and the price, if any, is the only functional difference. The third one sucks, right? And that's the one I keep thinking about lately. Behringer has a few examples of it. Eurorack, really their Eurorack strategy seems to be that. But the one that really got to me was the Abacus. It is a ripoff of the Make Noise Maths. I reacted to the announcement when it went live in May, and that's when I wrote most of this outline, so I will just read my Instagram stories verbatim here. My phone is dead. Behringer sees Maths, one of Eurorack's truest success stories, the quintessential example of a well-designed, inspiring module being enough to propel a small builder to worldwide acclaim. Proof that hard work and good ideas are still rewarded in a creative industry. For them to completely rip it off, the UI, barely change the UI, and mass produce it in the factory city that they own, it's just too blatant. It's so clearly wrong. It's the sort of thing an Air Bud villain does. And to be clear, I feel the same way about the open source stuff they've copied. It's legal isn't enough to make it okay. The modular space having tons of people in it, willing, enthusiastic about sharing knowledge is part of what makes it so special. For that to be turned around and used to enrich an enormous corporation is grim. That was just what I said in the moment. I didn't think about it. I didn't do research or whatever, but I stand by all of it. One of the best parts about Eurorack, we've seen driven, passionate people have good ideas and build companies from that. I'm truly, sincerely thrilled that I exist in a space where that can happen, where creative, driven people can find legitimate commercial success because they have good ideas. And I hate that I also exist in an industry where a big company can just take that idea and face little to no repercussions for it. It looks like, and I don't know this, I'm just speculating, that Behringer is just pulling up Modular Grid and using the most popular modules as a roadmap. So I'm going to literally check for you right now. So just looking at Eurorack modules, I'm going to sort by most popular. Platts, they have a clone. They call it Braids. Maths, they have the Abacus. Maths again. Quad VCA, they called it the Foreplay, I think. Very creative. Beads or Marbles, I believe they have a clone announced. There's the Batumi, the 4LFO, or maybe Marbles, one of those. Anyway, you get the point. It looks like they're just looking at the most popular things on Modular Grid and saying, we're going to make that exactly. They're letting these much smaller companies take on all the risk. I have to stop my screen recording. They are letting these way smaller companies take on all the risk of actually developing something. And once the market has proven that a module is something people want or willing to buy, Behringer uses that as, confirmation that the R&D has worked. And then they make a version that's cheaper, and it's crazy. They don't have any of the incentive to innovate that drives these smaller companies and none of the risk. And I just don't respect a company that works like that. I cannot be convinced that a company that big, leeching off of what is in some cases the work of very passionate individuals, emphasis on individuals, I can't be convinced that that is in any way good or something we should be okay with, or it's a level of disrespect that I should overlook for the sake of a deal. And yeah, let's close the door on that. Before we're too far, the clones of the vintage stuff, I do think tools being accessible is good. I'm a fan of musical instrument and synthesizer history. I'm excited that people are excited about classic hardware. Yes, but just putting them out isn't a noble thing. They're a giant corporation. Making money is their motivation. I think that maybe the discourse could be a lot healthier, if they were just making vintage clones, but they aren't. And so we can't just talk about the things we do like about the vintage clones. We have to take everything else into account. Okay? And one of the other things they actively do, Behringer actively antagonizes other parts of the industry, other people in the industry. And I assume a lot of you will be, again, familiar with a lot of these stories, so I won't go full investigative mode, and I won't give you the full details. I just want all these things laid out before I make any final conclusions. I want everything that I think about to be out there forever. So anyway, once upon a time, Behringer tried to register a trademark for Oberheim. Tom Oberheim, his name, he's one of the most important synth designers in history. And even though they were already cloning his circuits, that wasn't enough. They wanted to take his name. And they were successful in countries outside of the United States. If I remember correctly, I'll cut it out if I'm not. They even listed Oberheim on their website for a while as one of their companies. And the way I remember it coming to in the end, they lost the rights or the battle, whatever, for the trademark in the States. They got denied the rights to use it in the United States. And then a few months later, they spun it again as this noble thing that they were giving his name back. But they didn't just end up with it in some acquisition. They didn't happen to own his name. They took it. And it sure looks like they just gave it back because they found out they couldn't use it everywhere that they wanted. It was a public attempt to mislead people. It was a public attempt to lie, and that their clones were some way associated with the original creator. And again, I don't respect a company that works like that. And somewhat related, Behringer really does not like to be criticized. They have sued media outlets for referring to their products as knockoffs. This was a while ago. They have attempted to sue forum posters for something similar. They have publicly harassed a journalist, Peter Kern. We all remember this. They went as far as making a product markup, and they went as far as to threatening, or I believe threatening to trademark his name, because one guy had a review that they didn't like. A corporation devoted man hours and money and time to a 3D renderer, a video with voiceover, and they started the process of trademarking his name. That's insane, right? That shouldn't be the way any company works or responds to criticism. And just like the clones, especially the small manufacturers, it just feels like a company who's big enough to know they can bully everybody else. And they do it. Continuing on with Behringer not liking to be criticized, they really don't like YouTubers. And this is a section I originally cut because I was worried people would conflate my criticism of Behringer's media approach or social media presence or whatever as criticism of anybody who, is a public-facing part of their YouTube channels. And it's not. I respect the people who demonstrate Behringer products for a company they work for, or even the ones who work for Behringer. They don't decide the way Behringer behaves any more than I do. Yep, yeah. So that said, I'm bringing this up now because Behringer recently has decided that they're going to make some pretty wild claims, social media posts about how, quote, influencers have decided not to support them. So yeah, I do feel like I'm allowed to talk about it now. So much so, they don't like other YouTubers and they don't like criticism, that they have their own YouTube channel. And in many ways, it has the outward appearance of a channel like mine. And this might be a little hyperbolic, but it's, to me, because they still want a piece of the YouTube marketing powerhouse. They know, and I know, YouTube is the most effective marketing channel musical instruments have ever had, full stop, no question. And they don't want people who get to say whatever they want to say to talk about their products. So they make their own channel, and at times it fills the exact same role as somebody like me because it's designed to. And they get to completely control the messaging there. It's totally avoiding any criticism. And anyway, just for myself, I'd love to see the same people who proudly do not trust any YouTubers, who comment on my videos and comment support under everything Behringer ever posts. I would love to see how they comment on Behringer's channel. I would love to know for sure that all the, paranoia or distrust of somebody like myself because I'm a paid shill, I'd love to see how they think about the official Behringer channel presented so casually. Regardless, that was just for me. Okay, let me read a tweet from Behringer, okay? I think it was literally today. They said many media outlets and influencers have decided not to support us anymore because we don't pay for ads. We don't provide free products for reviews, or they simply don't like us for whatever reason. In all fairness, there are also many other outlets that share our content and review our products in an unbiased and honest manner because they do what is best for you, the consumer, or the customer, excuse me. We truly appreciate those people. We're happy to support and feature them on our channels. For you to receive immediate and first-hand information, we encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel below. For one, Behringer has confirmed something I wrote a few months ago, that what they really want is everybody to listen to their, marketing-approved stamped messaging and feel like me and all my peers are the enemy. And I hate that. It's so frustrating to already deal with it all the time for a company with an enormous following and an enormous spotlight on everything they do to, make people dislike me and my peers. That's very, very frustrating. A point from my buddy Bo Beats, great guy. Sitting at review units isn't an unethical thing. It's not new. It's part of product marketing and it has been forever. And I was so frustrated by everything else, I didn't even think how simply true that is. That's how media outlets get to talk about your stuff for whatever. You could be selling lawnmowers, If you're selling tractors, a review unit goes out to Successful Farming, for example. It's just the way it works. It's the way it's worked forever. It's weird that Behringer doesn't do it. It's weird that they're proud and publicly claiming that they aren't willing to do it. And in a few places, it's been credibly disputed. I saw Ben Jordan today tweet that they were willing to send it to people, so Behringer is just lying. Okay, in response to Behringer saying paying for an ad, when I get paid to make a video, I'm being paid, and I say this, and I want people to truly believe it, I'm being paid for the time it takes to learn the product, the time it takes to film and edit a video, and safe to assume, most important from the company's perspective, they're paying for a chance to be in front of the audience that I've built. So because what I would be making on my channel anyway, and the sort of thing my audience is here for, which is a video from my perspective, a video with my impressions, my opinions, demonstrated by me, something about that combination, right, is what brings people here, and that's worth a company compensating me for my time. It is true, if I don't like something, I send it back. I recognize and respect that the role I play from a lot of perspectives is one of marketing. But if I was just making videos to get paid, you would see way more stuff that sucks. But I'm not just doing it to get paid. I talk about stuff I like. I don't ignore the negatives when they come up, and I respect you guys, my audience, enough to not waste your time with a video about something that I don't think is good or useful or interesting. Believe it or not, I don't get enough money from this to fight through the entire process of learning and filming and editing for something that isn't like actually inspiring enough to me or interesting enough for me to work on. And it's hard to convince people of that already, and it's exhausting when people dismiss something that I've worked on because they think that every influencer is a paid shill. So for Behringer to very casually, and now apparently as part of their marketing plan, inject some more fuel in that fire to start pitting fans against creators is super, super, super frustrating. And even more than that, it's unusual. I can't think of any industry where something like that is happening. I just can't. So anyway, I believe a lot of this most recent wave of Behringer discourse sort of starts with the post where they claimed Loopop would not support them anymore because they won't send him anything for free. And he responded to say that they were outright lying. And I have immense respect for Loopop. I don't get to speak for him at all. I'll link his Twitter below. You can see everything that he has said. But there's another recent, very clear example of Behringer not respecting this industry or any of the other people who work in it. And proof again that they want to control the narrative as completely as they can, going as far as to publicly lie, to paint themselves in this narrative as some sort of hero to the people, fighting back against this completely non-existent synfluencer cabal. We're just people. I'm a guy. I'm just a dude. I do this on nights and weekends. I love gear, and I'm very, very proud to enable other people's creativity. I'm not trying to control this industry, and even if I was, I don't have the power to do that. And not even the collective of Synth YouTube does. Yes, we have influence. I do not deny that. Many people more so than me, but it's a literally unorganized class of individuals, plenty of which do give Behringer positive press, by the way. Who has more power? This unorganized, unaligned number of independent people or a billion-dollar company? It is insane to me that I'm part of, their boogeyman. I'm part of a billion-dollar company's boogeyman. I don't like being the scapegoat or whatever you want to call it, any of that. It's so weird that Behringer has this social media presence and they're like trying to pick fights Who does that? Why are they like this? It's a company. Anyway, for me, I feel like I need to talk about all of that. That all needs to be part of the video for me to say this like last 2 paragraphs of things. I see Behringer more than anything as wasted potential. There's a version of Behringer that is my favorite synth company. The DeepMind, specifically the first real experience I had with them, had me so excited for what affordable synths were going to look like. Inspired by the classics, modern features on top. It was a price I could afford when I was just working as an intern. It was thrilling. I love that thing. But nothing they've done since has made me feel like that. And frankly, most of my Behringer stance is not based at all around the products being good or not, because I can't do that anymore. I can't just judge the products as they are, because Behringer's public persona or public decisions or whatever, public posturing, has ruined that for me. I cannot stop myself from thinking about the controversy. And if you can, more power to you. But they've ruined it for themselves. Some of the first videos on my channel that were really structured, that I'm still very proud of, are about the DeepMind 12. And I don't regret making them, but I wish I could look back and not have all these layers of negativity, all these layers of Behringer controversy to justify to myself to still be proud of them. Or whenever I talk to anybody about that's how I got my start, I have to immediately prepare for the discourse. And I find that exhausting. Yeah, so again, there's a version of Behringer that's my favorite synth company, and it starts with the DeepMind and it vectors out of there, you know? I would love a version of Behringer that has original product designs, that has respect for this industry, that doesn't pretend to be righteous, but we don't have that. We have a version of Behringer that steals designs, actively antagonizes critics, publicly lies to try and build an image as this hero for the masses, or in some way an underdog, perhaps. Yeah, so in my personal opinion, Behringer as it exists now is the corporate visage of a bully. And the only things they're good at are stealing ideas and inspiring vitriol. And I don't like it. I don't want to deal with it as a professional. I don't want to deal with it as a fan of music gear. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just frustrated that they're an entity that exists the way they do in this space that I love so much. So there you go. My name's Jorb. I love gear. I want the musical instrument industry to be better. Okay? That's all I got. Cheers and so long.